Hi there, friend. I truly appreciate you being here to watch this video. Your presence matters more than you know. And if you choose to subscribe, that would mean everything to me. Now let's get started. Every relationship eventually reaches a point where the tiniest cracks begin to appear. A call that goes unanswered. A kiss that feels just slightly off, either too brief or uncomfortably prolonged. A glance that drifts away too fast or lingers with unspoken weight. For Noah Everett, these weren't warnings. They were murmurs. He wasn't the type to respond with panic or confrontation. As a respected financial consultant in Charlotte, North Carolina, Noah had built a reputation on a careful mix of intuition and logic. He had an uncanny ability, reading people like financial patterns, especially the ones trying hardest not to be read. Lately, his wife Lauren had become one of them. Bright, confident, and persuasive, she ran operations at a growing tech startup. They had first met at a professional conference in San Diego 7 years ago. Their spark was instant. They bonded over a love for classic black and white cinema and the perfect espresso. Within a year, they were husband and wife. On the outside, they were the image of success and compatibility, but Noah began noticing the subtleties others missed. It started with late-night emails, unusually long showers. Her appearance at work became more curated, makeup more polished, perfume more intense, once light and floral, now darker, more provocative. She brushed it off as a sample from a client. No big deal. But to Noah, nothing was insignificant anymore. He didn't confront. Not yet. That wasn't his style. He observed. Quietly. Her phone, which used to be left unattended on countertops, was now never far from her. A new password locked it. Her departures became earlier, her farewells shorter, kisses distracted. Noah played along, smiling as if nothing had changed. But something inside him went cold. He started keeping tabs, checked her locations, monitored bank activity, watched her notifications. Lauren, however, was cautious. If there was something she was hiding, she did so with surgical precision. He found no hard proof, just the deepening suspicion that their foundation had shifted. Then a name appeared. During a calm dinner, Lauren brought up someone new. Ethan, a recently hired senior director. Bright, she said, demanding. Then came the quick addition. But he's fair. It felt too polished, too well-timed. Noah noted the name like a blade kept in his pocket. A week passed. She mentioned Ethan again. This time she called him a mentor, someone she respected, someone who inspired her. Noah gave a practiced nod, masking the rising tension in his chest. That night, as Lauren slept peacefully next to him, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about how the rhythm between them had faded, how the light in her eyes had dimmed. She was present, but not really there. He knew what it meant. He'd seen it before. The next day, he made a quiet call to someone he trusted completely. Ava Riley, a friend from college, now a discreet and razor-sharp private investigator based in Raleigh. She was precise, professional, unshakable. They agreed to meet face-to-face, no sensitive information over the phone. 2 days later, in a secluded cafe, Noah laid out every detail, the subtle changes, the distance, the patterns. Ava listened closely. "Do you want to catch her in the act?" she asked in a low voice. "No," Noah answered. "I want her to admit it, on her own." He wasn't looking for undeniable proof. He was after the truth, spoken freely. And to get it, he had to make her feel like she was still safe. So Noah shifted roles. He became more cheerful, less inquisitive. He talked about work deadlines and new clients, made himself appear distracted and unconcerned. He stopped asking about her late nights. He stopped noticing her disappearances. And as he retreated, Lauren began to let her guard down. She softened, became more animated, more open. That's when he began the second phase. He bought a voice recorder, practiced his lines, picked the right moment, one that would seem authentic, unguarded, and he needed Ava's help. She would pose as his assistant, a familiar name Lauren had always eyed with quiet suspicion. A week later, over dinner, Lauren looked across the table and finally said the words he'd been waiting to hear. "Things feel different between us lately, Noah." He met her gaze, his voice slow and sincere. "I've been thinking about someone at work, Ava." Lauren froze, her body subtly tightening, but he didn't accuse. He confessed, gently, like it was difficult to say. He told her he didn't know what it meant, only that he needed to be honest with her, with them. Lauren stared at him, silent, her lips beginning to tremble. Her eyes welled with emotion. Then she broke. Everything spilled out. Ethan. What started as casual flirtation had turned into something more. One late meeting led to another, then hotel rooms, hidden messages, fabricated weekends. She confessed like someone releasing a burden they could no longer carry, as though the truth might somehow still offer redemption. But Noah wasn't there for forgiveness. He was there to listen, and to capture it all. Once she finished, her voice faint and shaky, he leaned forward, calm and composed. "Lauren," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you too." She blinked, unsteady. "What is it?" "There's nothing going on with Ava. I made her up. I needed you to feel safe enough to tell me the truth." Her expression drained of color. "And I've been recording this entire conversation." The silence that followed was like a weight pressing down on the room. Lauren's mouth opened, but no sound came. Her eyes darted around, desperate for an escape, some alternate version of the moment. But this was real. Every word she'd spoken was now evidence, raw, unedited, final. She raised a trembling hand to her lips, as if trying to catch the truth before it slipped too far. But Noah had already stood, composed, unmoved. No yelling, no accusations. He didn't need to say anything else. Her own words had been enough. Lauren stepped toward him. "Noah, I didn't mean for any of this to happen." He gave no response. He turned and walked upstairs. She followed him part way, stopping at the 5th step. Something in her understood. Crossing that line would only make it worse. His silence screamed louder than anger ever could. Upstairs, Noah packed with mechanical focus. Essentials only. Important documents, a few changes of clothes, his laptop, phone, wallet. No emotional glances at photo frames, no final looks. On his way out, he passed Lauren without acknowledgement, opened the front door, and disappeared into the night. By morning, the audio recording had been sent. 2 recipients, Monica Fields, Ethan's wife, and the CEO of Lauren's company. No preamble. No message, just the file. The subject line read, "This is the truth." And that truth hit harder and faster than Lauren had ever prepared for. By the end of the day, the CEO had already responded. Human Resources quietly launched a confidential investigation. No press statements, no heated confrontations, just swift, silent consequences handled with efficiency and zero spectacle. Ethan, once regarded for his calm, measured leadership, was called into a private meeting room where he was handed a resignation ultimatum for ethical misconduct. He tried to justify himself. He insisted it was a personal issue with no bearing on his position, but the proof was irrefutable. There was no arguing the facts. He left through a back hallway, pale and visibly shaken. The following day, Lauren faced a similar fate. No formal goodbye, no official explanation. Her system access was cut, her ID deactivated, and her termination paperwork handed to her in a sealed envelope. She didn't resist. She didn't have the energy. Her reality unraveled all at once. By then, Noah had already relocated to a modest apartment far from the city. Charlotte was behind him. His company email was inactive. His phone number changed. His departure wasn't spiteful. It was deliberate. He owed nothing to someone who had looked him in the eye and chosen betrayal. Lauren tried to contact him. She left voicemail after voicemail, long emotional messages filled with apologies and explanations. She insisted it was a moment of weakness, swore she still loved him. But he never answered, never replied. That silence? It shattered her. Meanwhile, Ethan's wife, Monica, responded to the incriminating recording with one chillingly calm text. "Thank you. I'll handle it." Within a week, Monica filed for divorce, demanding full alimony. Ethan's financial accounts were promptly frozen. His legal team couldn't construct a plausible defense. His image was beyond repair. His professional network dissolved overnight. He became untouchable. Lauren, too, began to feel the social erosion. The texts stopped. Even her closest friend unfollowed her days later. She began applying for jobs, first a few, then a dozen, then more than 30. But the damage followed her everywhere. HR departments were already aware. Her fate was sealed the moment she believed Noah wouldn't find out. But he had always known. He waited. 2 weeks after things went quiet, he filed for divorce, submitting recordings, detailed timelines, and a signed affidavit. The court barely deliberated. The ruling overwhelmingly favored Noah. He kept nearly everything. Lauren signed the papers in a sterile law office, hands unsteady, eyes fixed downward. She had no job, no title, no real home. Just a small temporary apartment outside the city, no health insurance, her savings dwindling fast. She clung to therapy sessions and scoured job listings, but her past clung tighter. Ethan never called, never texted. She even sent him a handwritten letter. No reply. He had vanished, just like Noah. But Ethan's exit had none of Noah's dignity. And now she had no one. The man she betrayed left quietly. The man she chased left without a word. The life she thought she controlled had collapsed into a cage of solitude. The nights grew longer. She stopped replying to the few messages she did receive. Eventually, they stopped coming altogether. At the grocery store, she avoided familiar faces. She kept her gaze low. Her voice, once steady and confident, now cracked even in casual conversation. All she had left were memories and the crushing weight of consequence. Noah never sought vengeance. He didn't have to. Sometimes the truth, unleashed with precision, is punishment enough. In the months that followed, Noah didn't just leave, he transformed. He rented a quiet 2-bedroom in Asheville. It sat in the hills he had long admired but never had the chance to explore. He enrolled in a weekend psychology class at the local college. Understanding human behavior gave him peace, not therapy, but clarity. He began waking early, brewing his coffee with intention, running before sunrise, journaling afterward. No emotional spirals, no reckless flings, no destruction, just slow, focused rebuilding. He didn't erase the past. He tucked it neatly into something manageable. Not forgotten, just repurposed. A lesson, a guardrail. When he ran past the small stream near his apartment, he sometimes remembered how Lauren once complained about nature being too muggy, too loud. It had made him laugh then. Now, he picked up his pace. He no longer wondered about her. It no longer mattered. Back in Charlotte, Lauren's world had shrunk to rejection emails, empty rooms, and the echo of that night looping endlessly in her mind. She replayed Noah's quiet voice when he told her about the recording, the lack of emotion, the sheer calm. That wound cut deeper than any shouting match. If he had broken down, maybe she could have clung to something. But he didn't. And that calm was final. She tried to restart her life, applied for assistant roles, even considered moving. But interviews went cold once background checks ran. No one wanted to risk the PR fallout. One recruiter was blunt during a follow-up. "There's a story attached to your name. People are talking." She hung up and didn't leave her bed for 3 days. One lonely Friday night, she scrolled through old photos, one from New Year's with Noah, and something inside her snapped, irrevocably. The affair with Ethan hadn't been passionate. It wasn't love. It wasn't worth any of it. He disappeared faster than a bad first date. No explanation, no closure, nothing. And maybe that was the cruelest part. He didn't even care enough to give her an ending. She wrote Noah a final email. Long, raw, filled with nostalgia. With lines like, "I never stopped loving you, and I'm completely lost." She didn't ask for him back, just for a conversation. Noah read it, and chose not to respond. He didn't have to. His silence was enough. Her words had already been captured on that recording. Proof of how easily people lie when they think no one's listening. As Lauren drifted through days clouded with regret, Noah found steadier footing. He met new people, people who only knew him as Noah Everett, a thoughtful man from Asheville, quiet, insightful, not one to talk about himself. Among them was Claire, who ran the neighborhood bookstore with a pencil always behind her ear. Her father had built furniture. Her voice was gentle but certain. She didn't press for details. When Noah told her he wasn't ready for anything serious, she just smiled and said, "That's fine. Let's just be kind to each other and see what happens." For the first time in a long while, Noah smiled without effort. They started meeting every Thursday, sometimes for coffee, sometimes just to sit, sometimes in silence. But it was honest, simple. No hidden apps, no vague disappearances, just presence. Back in Charlotte, Lauren had sunk lower. Her last friend, Maggie, stopped answering calls after being contacted by a hiring manager who wanted the truth about Lauren's departure. Maggie was navigating motherhood on her own. Getting entangled with someone stained by scandal was out of the question. At the same time, Lauren had started drinking alone in the evenings. Eventually, the liquor no longer dulled the ache, and tears took its place. Hoping to reclaim a sense of worth, she started volunteering at a local shelter. But even there, when she offered her name, people paused too long. Her identity had become a hushed warning, a whispered reference in HR meetings. She was the woman who had admitted on tape to an affair. Over time, she gave up trying to play any role at all. What hurt most wasn't the fallout, but that she'd never meant for her life to unravel. The affair began in a moment of emotional invisibility, when she felt unacknowledged, insignificant, restless. Ethan had made her feel noticed, valued even, for a fleeting moment, until the mirage fell apart. In the end, she lost everything. Ethan walked away untouched. Noah hadn't orchestrated her collapse. He simply stepped back and let her dismantle her world. Not all revenge comes with noise. Some arrives in silence, cold, deliberate, irreversible. One dull morning, Lauren curled into herself by the window, arms wrapped around her knees, watching the mailman pass by yet again. Days had turned into weeks, and the mailbox filled only with final notices and rejection letters. The world moved on, indifferent to her absence. She had become the ghost of her own missteps. Noah, meanwhile, hadn't thought of her in months, not even in passing. That part of his life had ended, without bitterness, just resolution. And somehow, that made it all the more painful. He hadn't just left. He had grown beyond her. He didn't scroll through her profiles, didn't ask mutual friends for updates. His apathy was complete, and that absence of emotion cut deeper than rage ever could. By the time spring returned, Noah had rebuilt a life Lauren would barely recognize. It was peaceful, stable, real. He found joy in photography. He spent evenings reading on the porch, finding small, steady moments of contentment, not because life was perfect, but because he had come to trust it again. Claire, who owned the little bookstore in town, became a quiet, reassuring presence. There was no drama, no deceit. One day, when she asked why he never spoke of his ex, he simply said, She taught me what betrayal sounds like. Claire didn't prod. She gave a soft nod, her eyes full of empathy. That was all he needed. But Lauren's lessons were far from over. A year after everything fell apart, she accepted a temporary position downtown. Just data entry, no benefits, no recognition. She faded into the background. And oddly, that was comforting. One afternoon in the break room, she overheard two interns laughing about a podcast episode. The story they joked about sounded eerily familiar. A man pretended to fall in love with another woman just to trick his wife into confessing infidelity. One intern snickered. Then he sent the recording to her boss and the guy's wife. Brutal. Lauren's stomach knotted. It wasn't just similar. It was her story. The names had been changed, but the details were unmistakable. Someone had leaked it. Maybe Monica's friend, maybe Ethan's assistant. Her private downfall had gone viral as entertainment. She rushed into a bathroom stall and cried silently until her break ended. That night, for the first time in a long while, she faced her reflection. The woman in the mirror barely resembled who she used to be. Her hair dull, her eyes hollow. Her fingers brushed a scar on her lip from a winter fall months earlier. She'd spent 2 days alone after it happened, before even thinking to call someone. She'd reached for her phone, only to remember no one was left to call. Not Ethan, not Noah, not anyone who still believed in her. The real disaster wasn't just the affair. It was what she'd become when she thought no one was looking. The choices she made, assuming there would be no reckoning, as if Noah would always stay, as if Ethan ever wanted more than stolen moments and lies. Both men left, one quietly strong, the other cowardly. By then, Noah had written a short piece for a local newspaper, not about the betrayal, but about rebuilding. He titled it, "The Truth Always Waits." It ended with a single chilling sentence. What's whispered in darkness always finds the light, whether you're ready or not. He signed it only as Any. Claire read the piece and understood. She didn't pry. She gently placed her hand over his as they watched the sun dip behind the hill outside her shop. "Are you happy?" she asked in a whisper. Noah didn't answer with words. Just a real, quiet smile. Back in Charlotte, Lauren wiped every photo from her phone tied to her past. She threw out the wedding album, got rid of the perfume Ethan once complimented, but the voice in her mind wouldn't go silent, the one that kept repeating, "You did this. You shattered your own life. You betrayed the one person who truly loved you." That night, she wrote one last email to Noah. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She wasn't seeking sympathy. She simply wrote, "You didn't deserve what I did. I don't expect a response. I just needed you to know. I see it now. All of it." Noah read it, closed the message, and deleted her number. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because he had finally healed more than he hurt. And for Lauren, the most enduring consequence was the silence, the lingering echo of what had been lost. 16 months after the confession, spring returned to North Carolina. The trees bloomed again. The breeze softened. But not everything came back. Some things, trust, self-respect, don't recover the same way. Lauren carried herself differently now, not from age, but from the unseen weight of remorse. She tried therapy, yoga, journals filled with regrets. But guilt left to fester alone doesn't dissolve. It deepens. Her world had shrunk to a small apartment, one bedroom, cracked tiles, thin walls. She survived on temporary gigs and freelance work. Her credentials meant little in a world where scandal shouted louder than truth. Some nights, she scrolled through photos of her and Noah, not to relive the past, but to search for answers. How had she missed his detachment, the quiet withdrawal in his eyes? More hauntingly, how had she failed to notice herself slipping away? The affair was never about love. Ethan hadn't stirred passion. He had simply offered escape, a distorted reflection she enjoyed seeing. But when he disappeared, so did the illusion. All that remained was emptiness. And Noah, who never had to lift a finger to ruin her. He didn't have to. His silence was surgical. He stood still and let her unravel. And now she finally understood. His revenge wasn't the tape, wasn't the chaos that followed, wasn't the separation. It was letting her confront her own reflection. And that, in the end, was the harshest truth of all. As for Noah, he lived quietly now. No headlines, no echoes. There was no dramatic shift, no uproar, just a quieter tempo to life. Mornings began with the soft clatter of a ceramic mug and the familiar scratch of a pencil working its way through crossword puzzles. His afternoons were spent offering quiet advice to modest local enterprises. Nothing flashy, just enough to keep his mind engaged. The finely tailored suits from his corporate days in Charlotte remained untouched at the back of the closet. Now he favored soft cardigans and rolled-up sleeves. In Asheville, no one inquired about where he'd come from, and he never offered the information. His connection with Claire unfolded gradually, without urgency or definition. She didn't burst into his life like a tempest. She entered more like morning light filtering through a cracked door, unobtrusive, persistent, calm. One evening, while walking past a bookstore that had his essay anonymously displayed in the window, Claire looked at him and asked gently, "Do you ever think about her?" He didn't deflect. "Now and then," he answered. "Do you hate her?" she asked, watching him. He paused, then slowly shook his head. "No, I've made peace with the person she was and the version of myself that existed without her." Claire gave a quiet nod. That was all she needed. Maybe that was everything. Elsewhere, Ethan's decline was methodical, not explosive, but exacting. His ex-wife had taken everything she legally could. His name had appeared in more than one discreet warning memo. He relocated, tried different jobs. Nothing ever held. The confidence he once carried fell apart. Drinking took root. When Lauren reached out one last time, he didn't hesitate. He blocked her without a word. They both ended up as examples, cautionary symbols of how secrets always speak, even in whispers, how even silent betrayals echo through time. Eventually, Lauren gave up trying to contact Noah. She stopped checking for updates, stopped typing his name into blank search bars. A part of her recognized the truth. Closure wasn't coming. He wasn't going to return. He had stopped waiting long before she even realized it. But the deepest hurt wasn't in losing him. It was in recognizing that he had been waiting for her honesty, and that when she finally summoned the courage, thinking it made her strong, he was already gone. That was the real loss. 2 years later, Noah self-released a quiet book called The Honest Exit, a meditation on how silence can be more potent than vengeance. It didn't explode in popularity, but it found its readers. Its power lay in its calm, in its refusal to shout. It wasn't a story of revenge. It was a portrait of healing without destruction. One critic wrote, "This isn't a tale of payback. It's about becoming unreachable to those who once held power over you." Noah read that and smiled. Not because it hit the mark, but because that had always been the goal. He never wanted to ruin Lauren. He simply stepped back and let her witness her own unraveling. And now, standing on a quiet overlook in Asheville, his fingers entwined with someone who understood his quiet strength and steady presence, he knew he had already won. Not through noise or chaos, but with quiet grace. Because in the end, the most lasting form of revenge isn't tearing someone's world apart. It's building a life they can never re-enter. And with that, the story concludes. If it resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts below. Thank you for being here. If you'd like more stories like this one, explore the channel. Until next time, take care.